Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Colorado Geographer, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the control cities for Colorado Highway 7. I've been on this road several times, and it's a really beautiful road for the most part of it. But unfortunately, this road has some of the worst CDOT signage in the entire state for a state highway, and especially the east end. It's awful. Get ready for a bunch of rants here. And if you don't like weird roads, please leave a like on this video and leave a comment what that road is. And if you really enjoy this content, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button. Colorado 7 is 82 miles long, but should be 84, and goes from US 36 in Estes Park, and meets its eastern terminus near Lockbuoy, just outside of Brighton, on I-76 and US 6. Or does it? CDOT. Anyways, let's get into it. We're going to start on US 36 here in downtown Estes Park, which is the intersection with US 36 and 34. It's actually the second one. And 36 is going to be signed for 2 Colorado 7. And while I don't think this is the best choice for an overhead sign, I still think that 2 Colorado 7 is a good choice because 7 is a relatively major and well-known state highway. And also 34 East is signed for Loveland and Greeley, which in my opinion are really solid choices. Here on Eastbound US 34, we actually get a South 7 reassurance shield, even though that 7 hasn't actually begun yet. It begins actually a quarter mile down the road on 36. Again, I think this is really good. Also, I know that 7 is mainly an east-west highway, but it does run southwest for a good chunk of it. So I think that 7 South is a pretty solid choice here. This is where 7 begins, and we don't get a control city for 7 or 36. I wonder if 7 has anything on the other side. I wonder here. And on Westbound US 36, 7 is signed south for Allens Park. Why? I mean, I get Allens Park on Westbound US 36, which I'll get into here later. But on Eastbound 36, this doesn't make any sense. Yes, Allens Park is a cute little tourist town, but the population of Allens Park is 600 people. Not a lot of people are going to know about this place. I didn't even know that it existed until I drove on this road for the first time. This mountain sign is even worse. Allens Park is okay for a third or secondary control city, but Ward as the primary control? That is absolutely atrocious. I was today years old when I found out that Ward, Colorado existed. Ward is on 72. 7 doesn't go through Ward. If you're going to put Ward as the primary control, sign Nederland instead. And on Eastbound US 36, I would sign 7 South for Nederland. Nederland's not the most well-known tourist town in Colorado, but it's still a relatively decently sized place. I mean, it's, under 1,000 people, but it's bigger than Ward or Allens Park, and it's got a relatively well-known ski area close by, so that's what I would sign on the bottom line here is Nederland. Here's a look at 7 outside of Estes, which in my opinion, this is the most beautiful section of Highway 7. This is absolutely beautiful here. We're passing by the St. Catherine's Cathedral, which I have passed by this church many times. You can see it clear as day from 7. It's one of the most beautiful churches you can go to, and I've never been here. One of these days, I would really like to celebrate Mass here. This is the way to Allens Park and apparently Ferncliff on Business Colorado 7, the first business route, or as I like to call them, child routes of a state highway. And Colorado 7 is now signed for Lyons, which that should be Nederland. Here's the way to get to Nederland here on Colorado 72. This is why I would not sign Ward out of Estes, because it's not mentioned on the pull-through sign for 72. Also, get rid of Peaceful Valley. Nobody knows what that is. Here on Colorado 72, we see 7 is signed for Estes Park and Lyons. And here, 7 South Lyons, I think this is the correct choice. I get people may want 7 to be signed east for Boulder or south for Boulder and or Denver. But here's the thing. If you wanted to go to Boulder from Nederland, you would have gone on 119. And from Estes, the quicker way to Boulder and Denver is to take US 36. So because 7 is not the quickest way to Boulder from Nederland or Estes Park, I do agree with Lyons here. It wouldn't make any sense to sign Boulder here when there are much quicker ways you can go to get there. Here's a reassurance shield for just 7. And we see that Lyons is the only control city on the mileage sign, which I don't really like this sign at all. Again, I really don't like it when there's just one control city. Oh, never mind. A couple miles down the road, we get this better one here. We get Lyons as our third, Longmont as our secondary, and then Boulder as our primary, which this one makes a little bit more sense. I kind of like it. I think that having Lyons, Boulder, and Denver would be just a little bit better, but Longmont is also a well-known city in Colorado, so I'm not mad that it's signed here. After that, 7's going to go through a canyon, which I call this West St. Vrain Canyon, named after St. Vrain Road in Estes Park. US 36 goes through East St. Vrain Canyon, as I call that. And there's both 7 and 36's canyons do not have an official name to my knowledge, but let me know if you know what the actual name of this is. And I welcome you now to Lyons, Colorado, which is one of the more quote-unquote cuter entrants to the Rockies town. US 36 signed Westbound for Estes Park, makes sense, and then Eastbound is signed for Boulder, and we're going to run concurrent with US 36 Eastbound. Boulder as a control city is good because it's over 100,000 people. It's got the largest university in the state of Colorado, so I do think that Boulder is a really good control city choice. But here's the thing, Denver is only 35 miles away from Boulder, so in my opinion, I think Denver needs to be on there. I wouldn't disregard Boulder because at that point you're disregarding a really big town with a huge university, but if you're going to not recognize Denver, you're basically disregarding Colorado's biggest draw, so I would like to see this sign here. I would sign, again, 36 West Estes Park and 36 South 7 for Boulder and Denver together. I wonder if we actually get this, though. I wonder here. And we do not. This might be the dumbest sign ever on a state highway. 7 does not end here. It runs concurrent with US 36. I don't know why it's not signed, but no, 7 does not end here. This is the first time that CDOT is lying to you here. CDOT is so stupid. Here's the mileage sign just after Lyons on US 36. We get Boulder and then Denver, which is perfect. Also, again, 7 is not signed. It should be. We're going to go ahead and skip to downtown Boulder, and to only make things better, 7 split with 36 is not signed. Why? CDOT, you're so dumb. Anyway, 7 is going to get on Arapahoe Avenue. But 7 is signed on Westbound US 36, so I'm not too mad here. 7 is signed east for Lafayette, which I think makes sense. Also, West 36 Lyons here. I get Lyons on 7, but this should not be on 36 at all. That should be Estes Park. Here's a look at Colorado 7 as Arapahoe Avenue, just to east of downtown Boulder. We're meeting up with Colorado 157 near the city limit, which is signed as Foothills Parkway. And 157 acts kind of like the bypass of Boulder here. And hey, 7 is signed here on 157 in both directions. Take notes, US 36. Here's a really cool little site here. We are passing by the Boulder Dinner Theater, which is on the intersection of Arapahoe Avenue and 55th Street, which this is a really meaningful place for my mother. She would go here all the time with her parents and her sister to shows for decades, and I've gone here a couple of times myself. Sad to say, this dinner theater is no longer in operation. They have since shut it down, and it is in the process of being demolished, and they're going to build an apartment complex here. I don't know why this is, but some people that's all I have to say. Some people. There's no mileage sign outside of Boulder on 7, which in my opinion is not a smart choice. So here's what I would sign. I'd sign Lafayette as the secondary in 8 miles, and then Brighton as the primary control in 27 miles. Here's a look at 7 outside of Boulder. 7 and Arapahoe Avenue is going to turn into Arapahoe Road. Kind of weird. And we're going to be on a flat road for pretty much for the remainder of 7's length. We're meeting up here with Colorado 42, signed as 95th Street. Makes sense. Here's a better look. I think this is the counterclockwise terminus of Colorado 42. And we get Junction 7 signed on Colorado 42's counterclockwise terminus. Makes sense. A few miles later, we're going to be meeting up with US 287, which is not signed here. That's dumb. What happened? CDOT doing road work. And hey, look at this. Back in the day, 287 was signed northbound for Longmont, and the concurrency with 287 was signed southbound for Lafayette. I don't know why CDOT got rid of this. Dumb. Sheesh. And again, on the 287 concurrency, Why is this 7 East? Again, dumb. Here's the split with 287 and 7. 7's going to get off here, and 7 is signed east for Brighton. That's correct. And 287 is going to be signed south for Broomfield, which I like this quite a bit. Broomfield's a pretty big suburb, but this is the quicker way to Denver from this point, so I think Denver would be slightly better. Here we are on Baseline Road now, and this is where 7 is going to join. Here's a look into downtown Lafayette. I wonder if these buildings, I think, might be newer, if I'm correct. I know they've done a lot of development here in Lafayette since I was a kid. My grandfather actually used to live in Lafayette until he passed away. Back in the day, when I was a kid, I don't think half of this was here. Here is the Wow Children's Museum here in downtown Lafayette, which I've been here several times as a kid with my grandfather, and I think this is a really cool little place for kids. When I was growing up, you would stand in a bubble and then raise up the bubble, I think is how that went. So it's a cool little museum. I'd recommend checking it out. I haven't been here probably in 10, 15 years. After Lafayette, we get the mileage sign for only Brighton, which I would put Erie as the secondary because it's not that far away. It's only 2 miles away, even though that Erie is a pretty small place. Here's the turn off for Erie here. And then a few miles later, 7 is going to pass through Broomfield for a short time. And take a look at the street sign here. We get State Highway 7. But up ahead on Northwest Parkway, this is actually a newer sign. 7 is signed as Baseline Road, which this should be Baseline Road all the way to I-25. If you're going to stay, I think this is really inconsistent. This is a newer sign, and hey, I do like it. I like having 7 as Baseline Road. It's pretty cool. Speak of I-25, here is where we meet Interstate 25 with no control cities. How hard is it to make a sign with Fort Collins and Denver on it? Please, man. And on I-25, 7 is going to be signed east for Brighton. Makes sense. No mileage sign after I-25, and here's what I'd put. I'd put Brighton as the secondary in 8, and Hudson as the primary in 21, because there's nothing between here and Brighton, and Hudson is in the direction of I-76. Here is where 7 meets Colorado Avenue, which is eventually where I'm going to put US 87, so here's the sign that I'd put for 87. I'd sign 87 North Dacono and 87 South for Thornton. Sign the longer distance control cities for Interstate 25, of course, that being Denver and Fort Collins. Here's a look at 7 Eastbound, just before Brighton. Pretty boring. We're meeting with US 85 coming up, and here is where we enter into the Brighton city limit. There's no city limit sign, though, of course, as CDOT does a lot. Here's where I'd put that, though. Here's the ramps for US 85, signed south for Denver and north for Greeley, and 7 is signed east for Brighton. Makes sense. Pretty good overall. Here's a look at Bridge Street here in downtown Brighton. And here is where 7 should meet Colorado 2's northern terminus here, if you remember this picture. If you'd like to see my rant on Colorado 2's awful signage, check out the video that I made on Colorado 2 by clicking here. 7 just exits Brighton for a short while here, and here's a look at the flat section. And we're going to be meeting I-76 here soon. Wait, junction frontage road to I-76? What's going on here? Oh yeah, we meet possibly one of the dumbest terminuses ever for a state highway. 7 ends here on a frontage road to go to I-76. Why? Why does 7 not go to I-76? CDOT, you are so dumb. Just how hard is it to bring 7 2 more miles up the road to the interstate? And I-76 is signed for Denver and Sterling, which Sterling is better than what 76 is typically signed for. Fort Morgan. But still, Sterling's not so good. And again, 7 should go to 76, so this is the sign I'd put here. So 7 east to I-76, Lock Buoy and Hudson, turn left. So that's what I put down there. Alongside Hudson as well, just like with US 87, as I've mentioned a lot of times earlier, save the longer distance control cities for the longer road. And again, put 7 on the frontage road here, and I'd make a turn left to go to 76, which is where the exit is. Just after 7 turns on the frontage road, here is where I would put a mileage sign. I'd put Lock Buoy as the secondary and then Hudson as the primary here in 8 miles. Here's the traffic circle, and then this is the way to get to 76, and I would put here E7 to I-76 Denver, and Lincoln, Nebraska, which is the control cities I'd put on 76. Spoiler alert. And here is where Severn's eastern terminus should be, here at the junction with I-76 and US 6, which the concurrency is not signed for whatever reason, and that should be. And again, how hard is it to sign a highway for 2 more miles? Frickin' CDOT. Anyways, let's go ahead and turn back around and head back to Estes Park. We are on westbound I-76 and US 6 concurrent, and 7 is going to be signed west for Brighton, which I like this a lot. And you're going to put 7 west on the interstate, but you're not going to put the terminus of it here. Geez, CDOT is so dumb sometimes. 2-7. Again, should be E7 already. Why? But 7 is signed west for Brighton here, so at least it's got that going for it. Here's where 7 should enter the traffic circle and have it exit on the 3rd exit. After that's where I'd put the mileage sign. I'd put down Brighton as the secondary in 2 miles because literally it's the next town over. And Boulder is the primary here in 34 miles. Again, I'm going to try to keep my cool. 7's east terminus is not signed here. You've had signs that say 2-7, 2-7, but where 7 actually starts is not signed. Just make 7 turn right. Bridge Street, Brighton. Jeez, man. Here's where 7 enters Brighton, which we get this as a city limit sign, which I think is pretty okay, but I think this one that I made here would be a little bit better. Here's where we meet up with the unsigned Colorado 2 once again. We're meeting up again with 85 signed for Greeley and Denver, which makes sense. And 7 here is now signed west for Boulder, which I think, in my opinion, is the correct choice, because this is the quickest way to get to Boulder. I wonder if CDOT's going to stay consistent with this. But if you said no, you'd be correct, and we get Lafayette as the only control city on the mileage sign. And Lafayette's okay, but I get it from Eastbound, but should not be the case here. Put down Boulder. It's bigger by a lot, and it's not that far away. Sign Boulder. Frickin' CDOT. Here's where we meet Colorado Boulevard once again, and we get a much clearer sign here that I viewed this time. Again, control city less I-25 is here. South, Denver, north, Fort Collins. How hard is that? On the on-ramp for Colorado 7, 7 is signed for Lafayette, which here, in my opinion, is correct. Because the quicker way to Boulder from this spot on I-25, you'd be better off just going to the toll road, Northwest Parkway, and then getting on US 36. So in my opinion, Lafayette is the correct choice from this spot. Here's where we get a West 7 reassurance shield, and here's where I'd put another mileage sign, which I'd put Lafayette in Boulder. And hey, look at this. Back in the day, they did actually have a mileage sign with Lafayette as the secondary and Boulder as the primary. Why was this taken down? That is so sad. And again, as I've said over and over again in this video, CDOT can be so stupid. Ugh. Here is where 7, which by the way is signed as Baseline Road, enters Lafayette. Again, which this is where my grandfather used to live. Why is the city limits of Lafayette not signed? Jeez, man. On the opposite side of where the Wild Children's Museum is in downtown Lafayette is where the Burger Rec Center is. This is home to the first ever water slide that I rode on as a child. I went here with my grandfather multiple times as a kid, and they had such a cool water slide here. I don't know exactly what happened, but I heard there was some flood, and they've had to condemn the water slide, which was so sad. That water slide was so cool. It had a rainforest theme to the pool. It's one of the coolest water slides, possibly in a rec center, and it's very meaningful. So sad to see that that's been taken down. Here's where we meet up with US 287, and finally, 7's concurrency is signed the other way. 7's going to leave 287 and gets off here on Arapahoe Road, and 287 is going to keep going northbound again for Longmont. And here's a better look at that intersection. North 7. What? 7 does not even come close to running northbound in this section. Ugh. My hopes have been let down already. But hey, take a look at this. Here at the intersection with 42, 7 is signed west for Boulder, and we get a mileage sign in 8 miles, and 42 is going to be signed south for Louisville in 2 miles, which I really, really like this. But 42 signed south for 75th Street also works too. I don't have a preference, but this mileage sign is pretty cool. Here's a look at just a plain old 7 reassurance shield. Ugh. And even though we just had a mileage sign for Boulder, I like to put this sign here too, just because it might be helpful for those who maybe don't know where they're going. There's multiple ways to get to Boulder. Here's where 7's going to enter the Boulder city limits, which we do get this sign, and I think this is fine, but I would like to see now entering Boulder city limits. This is this sign here. And now Arapahoe Road is going to turn back into Arapahoe Avenue. Why does CDOT not make sense here? Here's a better look at the intersection with Foothills Parkway, which is, again, Colorado 157. Here's a look at 7 facing the Flatirons, which this is so cool. Flatirons are one of the most iconic parts of the Colorado Rockies. Really, really an amazing view. And just at the stoplight ahead is where 7 is going to meet up with US 36. And guess what? CDOT does not sign it. Ugh. No, not even a junction US 36. Freaking idiots. And here's what I have. 36 signed east for Denver and 7 northwest 36 for Estes Park. And again, 7 begins to head northbound here, so that's why I'm okay with ending the east-west signage and starting the north-south signage. We're going to go ahead and skip to Lyons, and here's where 7 leaves US 36, and 7 is signed north for Allens Park. And again, Allens Park makes sense on US 36, and here's why. I would not sign Nederland at all because there are much quicker ways to get to Nederland. Even from anywhere in Colorado, the quicker way to Nederland is just to go to Boulder and take 119. So Allens Park, as really bad as this sounds, it is the correct choice. Because again, it does not make sense to go out of your way to take a longer way to Nederland. 7 North Allens Park does make sense here. Here we are on 36 eastbound here at the intersection with Colorado 7, and Boulder and Longmont are 36 control cities, which again, we should probably have Boulder and Denver here. And 7 does not get a control city at all, which again, I would sign Nederland here because if you're going eastbound on 36, this is the quicker way to get to Nederland. So put Nederland on eastbound 36, and that includes both intersections with 7, and then on westbound 36 in both directions, sign Allens Park. On the mileage sign, we get Allens Park as the secondary and Estes Park as the primary. Nederland should be on there too because that's what I would have signed on eastbound US 36. Here's a look at western St. Frank Canyon going the other way. Here's where we meet with 72 again, and 72 is signed for Nederland. Makes sense. And get rid of Peaceful Valley. Jeez. And 7 is signed north for Estes Park. So I'm mostly okay with this, minus the Peaceful Valley part. Here's where we meet 7's child route again as Business 7. This time, let's actually get on Business 7 and go to Allens Park because I've never been on it before. 20 mile per hour speed limit though, almost the whole way. Yikes. Not a fast road. It's also kind of a hard road. Here's where we pass into Ferncliff. And here's a look at Central Ferncliff. This is literally the whole town. The 30 people some odd that live here. Not a big place, but it's a really cool area. And here's Allens Park. This is it. This is like half of it. Again, it's like Ferncliff. It's not big. In my opinion, not control city worthy somewhat, but it is a cool little spot here. And here's Allens Park looking the other way. Business 7 ends back here on Colorado 7. Signed north for Estes Park. Signed south for Lyons. Again, should be Nederland. North Estes Park is good. We don't get a mileage sign after Allens Park, which I would like to see one, which I would have Estes Park as the third in 14, Rocky Mountain National Park in 15 miles as the secondary, which is the more popular attraction, and then Granby as the primary in 80 miles, which is, I would acknowledge, where 36 and 34 head toward. Right here is Annunciation Heights, which is a very, very meaningful place to my college career. It was actually where I was convinced that I wanted to join the Catholic Church, and I've been here several times for Catholic retreats in college, and I was actually just up here a few weeks ago, and all the memories from when I was in college came back to me. So this is a really, really meaningful place to me. Here's the turnoff for Rocky Mountain National Park, and here's technically where we enter the Estes Park city limits. And again, no city limits sign. Jeez. Here, just up the road, we get the Mary Lake Lodge, which is a cool little hotel, and I heard that they closed it down a few years ago, which is really too bad. This is a really cool little place. Here's a look at some expensive houses just outside of Central Estes Park. And we get this absolutely gorgeous look up here at the mountains. This is an absolutely beautiful road once again. And here we meet US 36 for the very last time, which is signed for Rocky Mountain National Park and Lyons. I get Lyons on 7, but sign Boulder and Denver, please. That'd be so much better. Jeez. That white little building right up to the left is actually the Stanley Hotel, which is where The Shining was inspired by. It's a cool place. I've been there once before with a friend of mine. I haven't been there, though, in a couple of years, though. And here is a look at the western terminus. And we also get a sign that says US 34 turn left. And again, 34 is only a quarter mile up the road, so makes sense to sign it. All right, let's take a look at Sumner's Control City for Colorado Highway 7. The control cities for Colorado 7 eastbound should be Allens Park, signed on West US 36, but should be Nederland on East US 36. Then Lyons, then Boulder, Lafayette, Brighton, then either 2 I-76 or Lockbuoy are fine. I'd prefer 2 I-76 though. Westbound should be Brighton, then Boulder out of Brighton, but then go to Lafayette on I-25. Then back to Boulder after Lafayette and in Lafayette. Then Estes Park with the US 36 concurrency. Then Allens Park again on West 36, but Nederland on eastbound US 36. And finally, after Colorado 72's northern terminus, sign Estes Park again. This again is a fun road to drive on, but the signage is just awful. And now you can see why I think this might just be the worst signage on any state highway in the state in general. And again, as I sing in harmonious join with 50 other people who enjoy control cities. Freaking CDOT. Anyways, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree with Lyons or Lafayette or even Allens Park as being a control city? Should 7 signage be updated or not? Let me know. Next week, we're going to be taking a look at Colorado Highway 8, which if you've ever gone to a concert at Red Rocks before, this is actually the highway you use to get there. So the chances that you've already been on this road are pretty high, and there's a good chance you're going to recognize this road. Once again, if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. This is Sumner signing off for the Colorado Geographer, and I will see you guys next week.
Hi, I'm the Golf One. Yeah, please subscribe. His videos are very funny. Whenever I read the script, I start laughing and we just have a good time. And if you want to hear more of my voice, then yeah, subscribe. I'm the Golf One. Okay, Golf One signing off. Bye!